share so that you can see what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so get you guys and make sure really on my screen. Okay, I want to make sure there's somebody in the waiting room. Okay, so if you've had a chapter in the past, this is going to just sort of reiterate some of the best practices on how to build a chapter and grow a chapter. And if you have not had a chapter, this is going to be a very easy to follow sort of plan for you to get a chapter up and running. I was in your shoes and started a chapter many years ago now. A few years ago, I didn't have a support coordinator or a grant to help me get started. So I kind of just developed a system, over the years of, where you start and kind of how it goes throughout the year. And so I am just sharing my stuff with you guys, okay? It's not mandatory that you use them, and they're not necessarily like the right way to do things, okay? So I just want to start by saying that because, we all do things differently, and there's not one way to run a chapter in Maryland. These are just starting points, and oftentimes as a teacher, I always like to start with somebody gave me the slides, then I could make them my own. But at least I had somewhere to start. I had some gauge of where I was going with this stuff. So that's kind of my intention with this is I've created a lot of stuff for you guys to use, a lot of resources for you guys to use. And we always say, teachers that I share things with, I'm always like, use or lose. You don't have to use it. Just use it if you want and lose it if you don't. You don't have to stress about it. It's, again, not mandatory to follow and use all of these resources. They're just going to be for you to kind of get started and, a foundational area to start with. So first of all, this is my information. I share this at every little meeting that we have. Please store my cell phone number into your contacts and make sure you save my email so that you get my emails. And if at any point you have questions about anything related to the grant or to chapter building or the curriculum, you can send me a quick text or you can send me an email. I'm here to support you. So please communicate with me. So a lot of people call Educators Rising a club, so like in your school, you might have a club day or a club fair or something. And this kind of falls into that category in thinking like that, meaning that it can be held, during club time or, before and after school and that sort of thing. But really, Educators Rising is not just a club. We are an official CTSO, which is Career and Technical Student Organization. And that's a little higher level degree than a club. We are a national organization, and we are the only recognized teaching careers CTSO. So that just like elevates a little bit. And I think also because we're recognized by Maryland as a Maryland CTSO, one of the few that they have recognized as the official CTSOs for Maryland, it allows us to use Perkins funding to support club activities, memberships, transportation, different things like that. So that's, just to a higher degree than your average like Super Mario Brothers club or your anime club at your school, which are all great clubs and super fun. And I support all of that. I just want you to kind of have this sort of idea when you're speaking to your kids about this to kind of elevate it a bit, because we do want them to feel like this is, an honor to be part of this organization, to be part of a chapter. And so we kind of try to get away from the word club and like to call it a chapter. So we have presence in all 50 states. We have a curriculum that goes along with our CTSO and our chapters. So you will, as part of the grant, you will have access to the curriculum to help guide your club meetings and to also use within your pathways as a resource. If you haven't done the curriculum training, you'll hear all about that with the curriculum training. If you have, then you've already heard that we have great curriculum here in Maryland, TAM and the CDA curriculum that we're required to use. So the curriculum that's being offered by Educators Rising is simply going to be a resource for us, but it's an amazing resource and it's very useful. So here is some just basic data about Educators Rising in Maryland. We have 84 high schools and middle school chapters with 962 high school student members. We're seventh in the nation for total membership, but we are on the rise. Maryland is kind of a star state at this point, partially because of this grant. We are really focused, Educators Rising, really focused in the Maryland area. And so we are going to be kind of way higher than this next year. This was our last year data, and I think we're gonna blow those numbers away. And you're gonna help with that because you're part of the grant. So because of that CTSO recognition and honor, we are allowed to use Perkins funding. Now that is something that is allocated throughout your county in, oopsie daisy, in a capacity that I have no control over. So, and you probably have no control over. Most of the time, there's a central office person that sort of manages the allocations for that Perkins funding. Sometimes it's held at the school level, and it's really different all over the different counties in Maryland, the different school districts. So when it comes time to, access that funding, or if you're curious about it, we can kind of talk about it at the county level and kind of see where your needs are and who in your county sort of manages that. That being said, the fact that Perkins is allowable, it does not mean that you will have access to Perkins all the time, because Perkins usually has been, allocated for specific things the previous year. So hopefully they have allocated some to CTSO use in your county, and you may be able to tap into that at some point for, for a bus or transportation to one of the events, or to the county, or to the conferences or something like that. So, but what is great about it is that we do have access. So moving forward, whoever that person is, we can sort of plan for next year by making sure some of that stuff is built into the budget for next year. So you want to just really emphasize to your students too that this is, you want to have some pride around this organization and this chapter that you're building in your school. This is, a chapter for future educators, or people that are interested in working inside of a school system. Maybe that they would like to be admin, or they'd like to be a PT in OT, or speech pathologist within the school system. So this is, a perfect organization for folks like that, or people that are interested in that. So, make sure that you're developing a sense of pride about being a part of the Educators Rising chapter. Once you're established and you have a strong chapter going, you can, put in a system where the older students, like the higher grade level students, kind of mentor the younger ones coming in, and making sure that they feel comfortable and that they have a job and all of that kind of stuff. We had a buddy system. And then really being active with service projects within your chapter is part of the fun, and it is also part of building a sense of pride and accomplishment for the students that are involved. And then just celebrating all of their chapter achievements as they compete, really just competing at all. But as they compete, if they compete in competitions in Maryland, make sure that you recognize that their placement, and that you kind of shout that out to your school and your admin, and then they have them do shout outs to your students through, the chapter, or the district newsletters and things that go to parents. I think it's just really important to kind of spread the word about all the great things that your students will be doing as part of this chapter. And then another way to kind of get things, make the kids really proud, is to make T-shirts that represent their chapter, or have like little stickers for their laptops or their Chromebooks. And there you do have use of the logo here. There's a horizontal stacked, and then just a regular, or there's a stacked one, and then there's a regular horizontal version. And you can use these logos and your school logo to kind of make like a chapter T-shirt. And I'm going to go back here just because I want you to see. This is my chapter. This is part of some of my kids from my chapter. And you can see, if you look at this T-shirt, there's a big C, and it says Clarksburg High School. And then in the middle, I put the Ed Rising logo there. And then we had shirts that we could wear to the Maryland conference. And even as we went further, when we went to nationals, there was a day at nationals that we chose to wear our Clarksburg shirts and kind of represent Maryland, and then other chapters in Maryland wear their shirts. So we kind of got a whole big picture of all the Maryland people that are nationals. And this is just a really fun way to do it. This kind of make it more personal to your chapter. You can certainly just put Ed Rising too on any of the shirts. But kind of using your logo or kind of tying it into your school somehow is just a really, kind of fun way to build that pride. And here is the link to the Educators Rising store. I put this here because I certainly don't mean for you to go to this store and spend, $30 on a sweatshirt or $40 on a sweatshirt, whatever it is, but to give you ideas of what kind of things that the logo has gone on. They have polo shirts and sweatshirts and t-shirts, but if you know somebody that has a Cricut, or that if you have a Cricut, you can do it very easily with a with a Cricut. We had our Maryland church sponsored by, I just had a family, one of the families had a painting business, and they offered to sponsor our t-shirts. So they paid for the t-shirts to be printed, and then they just had on the back their little printing company, so that we had the cost to make the t-shirts was no cost, because my chapter was rather large, and I had over 50 students in my chapter. And while I do have a Cricut and I love to make t-shirts, that would have taken me forever to make all those shirts. So we just had some cheap ones made, and the painting company who happened to have a parent in the pathway paid for it as kind of a way to sponsor us. So you can do that too. So you don't have to have. You might have a print shop in your. I think some schools have print shops, especially like technical high schools have print shops in places that they can do that as a project. So just kind of think about that as a way to build pride. It's really cool because they would wear their Ed Rising shirts on picture day for like the yearbook pictures. They all were matching. And it just kind of, like I said, it just kind of built a sense of pride. And this is what some of the high school students who've been a part of Educators Rising have said about being involved in Educators Rising. So this is straight from the students' mouths. Participation in Educators Rising has allowed me to, and it's like, learn more about a career as a teacher, compete at the national level, gain confidence in my abilities as a future educator, develop leadership and teamwork skills, experience what it's like to be part of a professional conference. So many great things were brought about, and experiences from students that really would not have had this opportunity without Educators Rising. As part of a pathway, they are going to get some experiences as well, but with Educators Rising tied into your pathway, whether it be TAM or the CDA, you are adding to their experiences. You are adding more professional development. You're adding more, experiences for them as a potential teacher. And I kind of like to call it the fun stuff. I know our pathway classes are very fun. I'm not saying that they're not, and engaging, of course, especially if you're under a CDA program. They get to work with children, preschoolers every day. That's super fun. But they get to go to competitions and go to conferences. And, as a high school student, to be able to go away and to go outside of your building and interact with other students is always really exciting for them. So the field trip aspect, the community service aspect, where they get to be inside of their school community, either in the feeder schools or just in their community in general, helping children in some way, collecting school supplies or putting on a trunk or treat. All of those things just are really fun for the students. So, it just adds like a special experience for them outside of the pathway class. So that is a little bit about what students are getting from it. These are some of the state officers. They wear these cute little blue jackets. These were last year's state officers. We have 9 state officers this year from all over the state of Maryland. And your students could be a student or a state officer as well near the end of the school year. It's actually like spring, not really the end, but early spring, we'll start asking teachers to reach out to their students to see if they'd like to be state officers. And the state officers are getting so much from this experience. As the years since COVID have had state officers since then, and as the years have progressed, we've the state officers have been progressively getting more and more leadership opportunities, and it's just amazing. Already they've been to an overnight conference where they were speaking on panels to adult teacher leaders at the joint CTSO training that was put on by MSDE. They were brought together with other state officers of all the CTSOs in the state of Maryland, so other peers that are the state officers of their programs, in early August for a training from MSDE. They worked together with the Delaware chapter to plan this school year. Over the summer, we brought together the Delaware state officers and the Maryland state officers, and together they worked to build out a plan for what they want for this school year. We are hosting this Friday, we're hosting a student-to-student conversation, sort of panel talk with our student, everybody's all of your students are invited to attend, where they will be hosting and talking about their experiences with EdRISIng. And then even there will be some college students have graduated from schools and been Educators Rising alumni there to talk about it. So definitely encourage your students to think about being state officers. It is a great resume builder, but it's also, more than anything, just gives them these wonderful skills that they will take off with them into teaching career or whatever career they end up deciding to do. So the EdRISIng membership offers these things: professional development, networking, competitions, leadership opportunities, not just at the state level, but there's also national student level opportunities. You could be a national state officer, or a national officer, sorry, and a national student ambassador. There's opportunity for scholarships. Obviously, the conferences, Maryland State Conference and the National Conference. There's an honor society. It's a national honor society. So if they get accepted into that, they get a cord to wear at graduation. And we all know they love their cords. So there's an honor society. So junior is a junior-senior honor society. So juniors get a certificate, and then seniors get a certificate and a cord. And then just a little note there that as part of the grant, the grant is paying for 15 members at each school site to be members. So chapter meetings are really meant to be, well-planned meetings. You want to hold them at least every month, one chapter meeting a month. I had mine set up so that I would have a chapter meeting once a month and then a leadership team meeting once a month. So there were technically two EdRISIng things to do in a month, or kind of meetings to organize. One was the leadership team, and they would come together. There's like 4 or 5, 10, however many kind of leaders you have in your chapter. They came together and they would plan and do the slides for the general membership meeting. And they'd usually meet like the week before and kind of finalize any of the stuff that was sort of outstanding, and then get the slides ready for that membership meeting the following week. And the membership meeting was held once a month, and we would just kind of publicize any of the community service activities that we were doing, fundraising events. We would talk about, some of the topics that we had planned to talk about in terms of, building their educational skill set. Some of you will have meetings within your pathway classes because CTSOs are curriculum, they're recognized by the state of Maryland, and they are curriculum driven. You are allowed to have your chapter meetings during your class time. So you could have it, every second Tuesday of the month, second Tuesday of the month, the last, 20 minutes of your period for all of the classes, all of your preps. Or you can have it during a time, like another time, like lunchtime or something. You don't have to have them before or after school. Sometimes that gets a little tricky with transportation and all of that. So kind of have to work with what your school system mandates. But I did have my meetings at lunchtime. And then I had my leadership meeting. So when the officers would get together and sort of plan for the monthly meeting, they came during a time that we had called advisory. So during advisory, they would come and get the slides ready and that kind of stuff, and then they would be ready for the membership meeting at lunch. And then we just had it once a month at lunch. Students would grab their lunch and then come to my planning room, and we would have our meeting. This is a link to the bylaws. These are the general national bylaws for Educators Rising. They haven't been updated since 2024, but I usually printed these out. I know, printing things out is kind of like faux pas right now, but I print them out and put them into a binder. And it just kind of was a reminder to my chapter officers that if they ever had any questions about like how to handle something or how to do something, it would usually be like in the bylaws, like what can we use the logo for, or how should we do this, or how should we set up that. Sometimes, that information is in the bylaws. And because we are a national organization, I really liked my students to know that there were bylaws that we follow by, just to be part of the chapter, to be part of the whole umbrella and have our chapter. We hardly ever, looked at those, to be honest. But if there was ever any question, I would like say, oh, why don't you guys grab the notebook and take a look? Um, and it just was, a good reminder. You can certainly set up chapter bylaws. We never got around to doing that. That's just like an added step. We just followed the national ones and then made sort of standards that we followed within our chapter, year to year. But that is the link to that. So now, before I start with the actual checklist, let's just see if there are any questions. And I just want to make sure that I have everybody. I have some funny names here. So I just want to make sure that everybody on my thing is here, because I want to make sure I mark you off. So I got Kathy, Audrey, right? Alyssa, Kristen Maddox, yes. Lindsay, yes. Allison, yes. And it looks like I have Michelle Goldberg. Do I have Paige? Hold on here. Paige Milanowski is in here? Or no? And Allison is here. Okay. So I think that's everybody, right? Does anybody have any questions about any of that I just talked about? I know I'm just looking at names on the screen, but I just want to make sure that you you guys are all up to date on that. Everybody good? Yes. You can drop questions in the chat if you want to as well. Just, if you don't feel like talking, I know it's the end of the day. Okay, so here's where we get into the nitty-gritty about kind of all of the things I created for you as resources and things, kind of like a sample roadmap of how to start. Oh, nice. Okay. Wow. Okay, good. So, chapter meetings are getting ready to go. I love that. So, this is sort of a roadmap. And again, use or lose, right, guys? I don't expect you to use all of my materials and think that, that's the way to do it. You can use things and see how it goes for you, or you can take it and make it your own. However you'd like to do it is really, that's really the whole intent, Second meeting already. Wow, nice job. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do when you're starting out a chapter, and especially right now because we have like this big thing coming up, which I'll talk about in a second, but you want to identify some chapter leaders, okay? So you want to make sure you have 2 or 3, 4 or 5, whatever you think is appropriate for your leadership team, okay? And we also need that because in October we're having a leadership conference and we want those students to attend that leadership conference. It's the first year we're doing this, and we want to make sure that they're getting some really good quality leadership skills. They're going to be we're going to be going to UMBC. They're going to be meeting with college students. They're going to get a campus tour, and the college students are going to give them leadership skills and have breakout sessions for them. And then also our state officers are going to do some of the sessions. So we want to identify some students that will be your leaders, okay? And again, this is a student, so this is career and tech student organization. So my job really is to do, and I know in the beginning you do have a lot of things to juggle and you're kind of like managing this and getting your officers and setting up the meetings and that kind of stuff. So it is a little bit, there's a little extra work for you right now. But the idea, and if I've done a successful job, is for you to pass off as much of this as you can is to those students, and those leaders are going to be important. So you want to make sure you pick the students that you feel comfortable sort of handing off jobs to do. Like for instance, like the slide decks for the meetings and stuff. If you're a control freak like me, I fully admit it. It was hard for me when my kids would make the bulletin, when my students would make the bulletin boards and their letters were crooked and those kind of things. I'm always like, oh, guys, it's got to be straight. But they're not going to learn if you don't let them do it. So it's the same thing with the slide decks. If, they're not visually appealing, or if they're not the right font or whatever it is, they need to learn that themselves by presenting those slides to other students. So, let them do it. Let them do as much of it as possible, because that takes it off of your plate. So again, those students that you identify right now are going to be really important to you, because they're going to be the people you delegate to. Okay. So then you're going to talk about it. Sounds like you guys have been talking about it and getting some students recruited into this. You can have an interest meeting. You can talk about it in your classes, like however you want to do it, and say, hey guys, we're doing this thing. We're going to have an Educators Rising chapter. We're going to be able to go to conferences. We're going to be able to do competitions. We're going to do community service. Kind of talk about it, get people excited. Tell your colleagues you work in the industry that this is for, right? So, some CTSOs represent farmers, for example. And so when they have a future farmer, FFA meeting at a school, they're not necessarily going to have a farmer in second period talking about being a farmer, but they do have a teacher in that room saying, there's a club for people that want to be teachers, and I'm a teacher, so they can help you. Your colleagues can help you with the recruitment. So make sure you let your colleagues, of course, your admin, everybody in your building know that you're doing this chapter, so that they want more teachers. I assure you, Mrs. Smith that teaches science, or Mr. Hoover that teaches the computer tech courses, they all want more teachers. We all want to retire one day, so they want more teachers. So they're going to help support your club as well by recruiting people or telling people about it. So make sure you tell your colleagues about it, because that's always really cool for them to know and to understand what's happening in the building. Then you're going to get ready for your interest meeting. If you're having an interest meeting, usually interest meetings can be done sort of in class if you're doing like through your pathway. If you're a chapter only group, which we do have some people within the grant that are chapter only, meaning they don't have a pathway in their school system. They are just having a chapter because they have found that some of the teachers or some of the students in the building would like to be teachers. And so they're starting a chapter there. And so in that case, they would want to have like an interest meeting, because like anybody could come and like learn about it. And there is a slide deck here. When you click on this, it opens up and it's a template of an interest meeting that you can use. It's a copy, like it's a copy only template. So like it makes you make a copy and then it's your own. Okay. So then you can do whatever you want to it. I would suggest that you have your leaders do it, but you can kind of walk them through this process. You want to make sure that this is some information about Maryland. I shared with you, this is some information about what, like, that your students might want to hear, why other students like it, what they've done. Kind of some general goals and a vision for your chapter. You can certainly adapt this as well, but this is kind of the 3 basic things that I think every chapter sort of focuses on. And then you kind of go into a little more detail about each of those. Make this your own. You want to develop some sort of communication system, like Remind. That's what we use in our school system. I don't know what other people, talking points is another one. It's where they can put their text or their cell phone in, and they can get these texts from you as updates. Same with Remind. Have them set up a school Instagram, like a school chapter Instagram, and have them run that to send out blasts about the cool stuff that you guys are doing. And then we used Canvas in our school system, so I always made a Canvas class for my Educators Rising members. And that is kind of dependent on your school system. Like, I don't know if you have a Google Classroom, you can make whatever. It kind of would like house all of like the flyers if there was a fundraiser, or the events flyers, or a sign up sheet for the back to school night that we were going to help with, like those kind of things. It was like one stop shop for everything that they could kind of find. So just kind of think about that before you when you're setting things up. You want to make sure you visit the state officers, and you can kind of publicize what the state officers, who they are, and what they do. And then you can put their photos in, the names in of the people that you've decided to be leaders. You can have typical leadership positions like president and vice president and all of that, or you can just call them a leadership team and have everybody be equal. sometimes, some teachers I've been talking to, they have, they have I don't even know, they only have 6 kids in their pathway or something, really small pathway. And so all of the 6 kids are going to be some sort of a leader, right? Which is totally fine, right? That's totally appropriate as well. So it kind of depends on whatever you have and whatever kind of situation your school is in, okay? But you can put their photos there. So this is just a template of what you might use to set up that first meeting or that first interest meeting, okay? And then this also requires you to make a copy, just so I set these all up so that you guys can make copies, because sometimes if people forget to make a copy, they'll sort of like mess up the original one. So then nobody has the chance to do that. So I've made it foolproof for all of you. But this is a student membership form. It basically is all the information that they will have to fill out on the portal membership that they have to complete. So it kind of just gives them the firsthand, insight to what they would have to complete or have handy, or information they might have handy for when they actually register on the portal. So it also then gives you a little insight to what, if they are interested in being a leader, and what position they would want to be. So that's just kind of good first things to do when you're first starting out, to kind of get an idea of like who might want to be part of the leadership team. You're going to hold that interest meeting, and I have a paper sign-in sheet here that you could print. Again, it's foolproof. Make a copy of it. We do love all those digital forms and stuff, but I actually just print this out and have it there at the very first meeting so that the kids could sign in and tell me their school email, and then what kind of things that they might be interested in doing as part of Educators Rising. And a lot of the times this comes after, like I have it pass this around after they've seen the slides, when they know that we're going to do community service activities and we're going to do competitions and conferences and that sort of thing. So they'll mark on there that they're interested in competitions, or they're interested in, leadership opportunities, whatever it is. And this is just kind of a way for me to gauge. And this is where I get their school email to put their information into like that Canvas classroom, and then their cell phone for like the remind or whatever. So it kind of just gives me, me or whoever I pass it off to, the information, the data to set that up. Okay. So then you will just, whatever you do to those interest meeting slides to talk about Educators Rising, you'll just play them here at that meeting. And then after that sort of initial, what is Educators Rising all about and what's happening with that, you're going to, kind of get a little more detailed into these leadership roles, and take a survey among the members that come to the meeting, and share out these job descriptions. So some of you have already said that you've already chosen your leaders, which is wonderful. And I know some of you have emailed me for some of this stuff already, and kind of been looking at this stuff from our first meeting. But this, from our like kickoff meeting. But this is a general sort of idea of what those job descriptions and what those people do within the chapter. And then it also has the kind of more jobs available, right? So this is like the core leadership team, executive leadership, you could call it. And then there's the rest of the leadership team. So there's a media advertising chair, a fundraising chair, community service chair. Now, here's the thing. I had a very large chapter. My chapter grew, of course, over time. So I had a chapter of over 50 students, which is a very, very large chapter. So, I had 10 kids that wanted to be leaders, which is great. I wasn't going to turn anybody away. So what I ended up doing was sort of making up these roles so I could put everybody to work, right? So we'd have somebody be in charge of fundraising, somebody be in charge of community service, somebody be in charge of competitions. You don't have to have all of these jobs filled. Really, your core leadership team will sort of handle everything together. And really, that's what ends up happening anyway. But I always wanted to like make sure that if somebody wanted to be a leader, that they had a job. And it got to the point where even we had a president and a co-president, or we had 2 people doing media and advertising, which is kind of like the social media coordinator too. So they ran the Clarksburg EdRISIng site. So just think outside the box. Like, these are for you to use if you need them. Like, if you need more jobs and you're like, oh gosh, I have like 10 people that want to be leaders. I would not turn anybody away. I would just give everybody a job. And we never, ever had elections and voted anybody down or any of that stuff. I was very clear that they would read through this to know so that they knew kind of what they were getting into. And then we just let them give it a try. Sometimes it was not successful. Like we may have had a fundraising person, like we had like two fundraising coordinators, and maybe one wasn't as active as the other one, and that's okay. That's how they learn. And then there's a little state officer blurb here too. So kind of talk about state officers even in the beginning of the year, because you're going to want to later readdress this and say, who would like to be a state officer? Like point out these places where you've seen the state officers and kind of the opportunities that they've had, because that could be them. And I certainly want to make sure that, you guys have representation, your counties have representation on the state at the state officer level. So, that's just a job description that you could kind of, use. There's a opportunity to use a survey for this as well. So if you have so many people in your chapter that come to the first meeting, you can kind of blast this out through Remind and say, here is a leadership interest Google form, basically their name, what grade level, what leadership position that they're interested in. And I see a typo here. And what position that they're interested, and then why they would want to be in that position. Same thing with state officer, like why they would want to be a state officer. So kind of just gets them into the mentality of answering that question. That is what they're asked at the beginning stages of the state officer application. They do have to kind of tell the state current state officers and the state coordinator why they would want to be a state officer. So it just gets them thinking about that. Okay. And then you're going to want to build your calendar of events. I feel like some of you are right around this area now. Maybe you've had a first meeting, you've picked those leaders, or that part's going to go really fast. This is where we have I have a lot of resources created for you. These are all links that are going to help you sort of build a master plan for the year. And I do suggest that you do that. You take some time with these materials and you kind of work through the entire school year so that you have a plan. If you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants every month, you're going to find that this is a lot more work. If you have a schedule, all you have to simply do is remind your students, like, yeah, hey guys, next week is the meeting. You guys are doing leadership this week, and your kids can kind of take it from there. They will have a whole calendar of everything that they need to do, and they can kind of follow it and, be the masters of the club that way and really keep track of that. So I am no longer a pathway teacher, and I am no longer an EdRISIng teacher leader, although I will always be a teacher and always be a teacher leader at heart. I now work for Educators Rising full time as of this school year. So it's really hard for me. I still talk about my kids like I'm in the classroom, but I was very detail oriented and really followed the calendar. Well, the person that's taken over for me, my students, I've heard from my students, and they're saying that they actually, which I think is really great because I allowed them to sort of take the reins with this, they're actually the ones coming to the teacher, my replacement, and saying, hey, we should be having a meeting this month. We should be doing this month. And that's fabulous. That's what you want. So she's actually going to benefit from the fact that they were so independent and being able to bring that information to her. So this is just, and I do have an old brain. I always joke. I'm like, anybody that was next to me, they're like, remind me of this, remind me of that. So they became those little reminders. So make sure you're training them to do that so that your workload is a lot less. Okay. So these links here, I'm not going to open all of them, but you can see based on the names, the national dates to know is really the national list of EdRISIng stuff, like the date they have to be registered by to be considered members and that sort of thing. So you kind of want to have, what I did is I would print out a copy of that and leave it. I would have my leaders come, print out a copy of the master list, and then I would print out a copy of this program of work and just have them kind of look through it and make a plan for the year. So we'll get into that. But the first thing I want to share with you is there's a meeting schedule list that I created, and you can just simply fill in the dates. When are you going to meet in September? The day, the time, location. And then, so that's general membership here at the top, right? And then leadership meetings. I picked my leadership meetings too. They were 1 week before the actual membership meeting. So they were set ahead. I would look at my calendar, my school calendar, and say, okay, well, if there was no school that day, then I would make it the day before or whatever. And, kind of set the master list up and have them, um, you know, type this in and make it official, but we would kind of go down and make all the meeting date list. So we could publicize it to a couple places. Obviously, you want to publicize it to the members and put it on like that Canvas page or Google Classroom and put it on Instagram, whatever. But also you want to like let the school know, because sometimes they want a list of like when the clubs are meeting and stuff. And then there's this. This is like a sample of it's a program of work that they created, and I think it's really awesome because it gives you ideas. Like maybe you're so new to Educators Challenge, you're like, I don't know what we do. Like, what kind of community service projects do we even do? What do we do for, for a meeting topic? This has it broken down by each month. You would not do all of these things, but like this is like kind of an example of things that you would have in your, in your time frame. So let's just look at November. So you have an officer meeting that's like a leadership meeting, right? A chapter meeting, a fundraiser. You could invite the school principal to come and chat, a community service project, and it gives you an idea for that. There's Celebrate Future Teachers of America Day, students work on competitions. There's a clinical experience opportunity, and then, another officer meeting. December, you could have a holiday party, fundraising, gift wrapping service. Like it just gives you ideas of things you can do. This is basically a list of ideas based on the month, right? Super helpful, and something I always printed out and said, hey guys, here's this list. It says stuff on there like talk at the Board of Ed this month. One of them says like speak at the Board of Ed about something related to teaching. So like our kids went to speak about transportation issues for internship opportunities at the Board of Ed. Like you have to sign up like, a few months in advance and give all that information. And they did that. I did a great job on that. So there's like different things like that that are listed on there. And I would have never thought about speaking at the Board of Ed as a student like that, speaking on behalf of teachers. So that was really smart. So they got to do that. And that was such a great experience for them. They understood, the process it takes to do that. And then it was like, it's recorded. So their parents got to see it and stuff. So it's kind of fun for them. So those kind of ideas are on there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take those ideas, these paper copies, right? And you're going to say, hey guys, now somebody open up their Chromebook, computer, whatever you guys use. And here's a template of our actual year. Okay. So you're going to add in all of the things that you think of for September, November, whatever. And then here's some things that are already populated, right? So I already put in like the competitions, the fall leadership conference, and then you are going to just add in your member meeting, your leader meeting, what service project you might want to do, what fundraising you might want to do. And this is just going to, again, use or lose, guys. Seriously, this is just kind of already populated with some of the things that are going on from our master calendar, and you can just put your dates in there and it will give you your whole plan for the whole year. So that's there to help you. And then each of these links, again, I'm not going to open these right now just because we do have a minimal amount of time, but these links bring you to resources to be able to fill in those block boxes, right? Here's some chapter community service ideas, some fundraising ideas. There's competitions. This is the competition schedule for the year. This is super important for you to have handy at all times because it gives you all of the information you ever need about signups. Will open in October. They've already opened for the October competitions. All the links, when the deadlines are. This is super important for you to have. So this is here for you to use. And then any conferences that you'll attend. So obviously we have a conference in April and May. April 30th or May 1st. So you want to make sure that that's on the schedule. And then of course, nationals, because, you're going to go to nationals, right? In Oregon. So here's some resources to help you with that. Just more links. These are all clickable links for you to find those things, right? I made some of these myself. So they're not necessarily EdRISING things like this one. is one that I created for community service things, and it has specific things to the month that are just community service ideas that we've done in the past. Like we've collected gently used items like Legos and puzzles and things for rainy day recess for elementary school teachers and different things in different months. So it's just some ideas there for you for that. And then same kind of thing, different ideas for fundraising, same type of thing. I'm going to show one of the fundraising things for you're going to probably want to focus in on fundraising quite a bit because Oregon is going to be expensive to go to. We are going to have some funding that is going to be available to go to nationals, and then Maryland EdRISING is going to have some funding. It's going to be kind of doled out sort of in a scholarship manner, but there will be portions of going to nationals that will not be covered just because it is so far, and it's like a long flight to get to the other side of the country. So you want to kind of think about fundraising throughout the school year and not just like wait until February or March. Okay. So here's one example. It's just like an apple, apples for teachers, and they can collect from people like different amounts for the apple. And once they filled up their apple, they have like a certain amount of money that goes towards their nationals trip. There's another one just like that for states that it's like the whole country, and they can get like, if grandma lives in California, then she can take that state and block that one off. And then there's just a bunch of different ideas, different things that I know about and ways that you guys can do fundraising. And then you're going to hold your first meeting. Some of you already have, going on the second meeting, but there is a link to some general meeting slides, member meeting slides. So this is essentially a template again, kind of, you open it up, make it your own. It's a general template about that actually just like has what's happening now and then what's happening next month and like competition. So you can just kind of fill it in each month, and really you have your leaders do that, right? So I always give them the template and say, okay, make October slide deck or make November slide deck, and they would make it their own. They don't have to use the template. A lot of them love to go into Canva or do the like slide carnival and use different slides and jazz it up. Totally fine. Whatever you feel comfortable having them do is fine, because that's always fun to do the slides, and it's also good practice because teachers like to use those fun jazzy slide decks all the time. So however you feel comfortable allowing them to do that, there's just a template there for you to use or lose, right? And you just want to make sure that you are having a monthly meeting every month, leadership meeting every month, and you're continuing to recruit members and stay active, and that you're encouraging them to visit the EdRISING portal because there's a lot of resources inside that portal for them. And then at that first meeting, you're going to want to announce who the leaders actually are, right? So you're going to, once you decide all this leadership stuff, then you want to just make sure that the main membership, the general membership, knows who their leaders are. So if they have any questions about anything, they know who to go to. If they have some idea for fundraising, they can go to the fundraising person or to the president or whatever. And then for recruitment ideas, there's a bunch of links here too. Some of these are my own things, and some of these are things that EdRISING has, had on their website for you to use for recruitment purposes. Especially if you're like a chapter only organization, you want to put posters around the building because you don't have a classroom to sort of recruit from, right? A pathway. So you want to make sure reaching out to all of the potential teachers in the building. So that's some information for that. And then this is just the last reminder to make sure that you're holding that meeting every month. And then there's the slide deck there that goes to that meeting. So having said all of that, do I have any questions this far in the conversation, in this presentation? Any falseness for leadership? Nice. Oh, Club Rush. I love that. Oh, I'm so excited for Falston. That's exciting. Harford County is really just rocking it. I love it. So we had a club fair day, and we did the same thing. We made a like a little trifold, and they made it really cute, and they would stand there and talk about EdRISING. And I always got this huge pack of lollipops from like Costco, like 1,000 lollipops or whatever, and passed out the lollipops to people, so it would get like a lot of business, a lot of traction. But the kids had to answer a question or ask a question before they could get a lollipop. So my kids were such sticklers. It's funny, I expected my my students, my EdRISIng students, to be just like giving away the lollipops, like to their friends or whatever. And they were like so good. They're like, have to ask a question, or we have to get your name or something like that, where they would give them a lollipop, and they were so good about it. But yeah, the club fairs are always really fun, especially when it's brand new, because everybody's like, what is this? And they come over and they want to ask questions and stuff. So this is a slide deck to a general teacher leader orientation. You don't really need to watch that. I'm giving you a lead, kind of a more personal version of that with lots of resources. But if you're ever bored on a Friday night and you don't have anything to do, you certainly could watch that slide deck just to kind of see what's going on there. This is just going to show you how to get into the EdRISIng portal. If you have not registered yourself, you should at least go on and register yourself as a member. Use your school email. It's free to register as a teacher leader. I sent out an email, I think, I don't even know. I've sent out so many emails. You poor people. I'm so sorry, but about how to get registered. And if you haven't yet, we're going to talk about the PLC coming up. But Microsoft Edge is, I use Chrome, but Microsoft Edge is sort of the preferred internet browser that works with the EdRISIng portal, because everything's done in PowerPoint and whatever. So you can use Edge, you can use Chrome, it works either way. But sometimes I just put this on here just so you guys have, that knowledge, especially in the curriculum. When you're looking at the curriculum stuff, Edge works a lot better. But once you have officially become part of the grant, some of you are, and some of you are not yet. If you're in Harford County or Frederick County, we're still working on getting those little finalized things done with the contract. So you have not gotten an email from Vicki Anthony yet. But as soon as that goes through, you will get an email from Vicki Anthony with this information. This is really more for so you can sign up for the portal and start up as a teacher leader now without the contract being signed, just to get access to the main portal. And then what will happen is Vicki will assign your curriculum access to that account that you're already signing up. And basically it unlocks the curriculum for you. And that's what we're going back and forth on, is this curriculum contract. So you can certainly just go on and, set up an account now. You won't have an access to able to sign up students and stuff just yet until this gets done, but it will give you teacher access. But once you have the contract piece signed that we're working on for some of the some of the districts, you'll get an email from this person, and it'll have some code information about what you enter for your students when it's time to register them. So you'll go to this website. This is how you log in. Once you set up an account, you'll go here and you'll put your email in, and then your password. If you haven't set an account, you see down here, it says you don't have an account, you just create an account, and it'll ask you for some basic information like your school, your name, just stuff like that. And then once you get in, see what's here in the chat. Yes, I'm also going to email it to you. Oh, who is that? Alyssa, I'm going to email it to you as soon as this is over, so you'll have the link in an email. Sometimes it's easier than this chat and having it open on your computer or whatever. So I'm going to email it to you. So it'll be in your email as soon as we're done with this. So once she asked if the slide deck will be available, so she can click on these links, which you will want to do. Once you get in, you're going to want to click on the high school resources here. And then once you get into the high school resources, there's these different things that you'll want to know. There's how you can find your roster, you click on teacher leader resources here, and you'll have access to all of the different things. I'm not going to show you that right now because we're running low on time, but just kind of play with it and look at it and see what I'm talking about. Basically, anything you would want to know that we've talked about, there's a link in there. So like a competition section, there's an honor society section that has all the deadlines and the dates and the information. But this is some information about the honor society. That's what the cord looks like. It's really cute with a little emblem. They love it. And then some criteria. They have to have a 3.5 on a 4-point scale. And then you can also set some criteria. So like the national level sort of active member criteria for the Honor Society. I set my own criteria for my chapter, meaning that I didn't want to I wanted them to be active level chapter too. So I assigned, as long as they came to meetings or they competed in a competition, the first year, you don't have to do any of that because honestly, the first year you just need to like survive, right? But then after that, I kind of started to see that somebody would come to the first meeting and then just want to be in the honor society, and they really weren't an active member. So I kind of set up like a point system for them to attend meetings and then, compete in a competition or attend the conference and that sort of thing. So, and also the conferences became sort of a privilege to get to go to if you were an active member, because I didn't want everybody just to try to, I have 50 something members, right? So I didn't want everybody just to try to get out of going to school for that day. I wanted them to be actual active members. So that's how we sort of, assigned point system to it. Program funded, do the students pay the application fee for Honor Society? I don't know. That is a good question. I don't know if there's money set aside for the Honor Society for the students. If not, you can use the fundraising, you can use fundraising money for that. You can also use Perkins funding for that. So if there are Perkins money set aside in your county for the Honor Society, you could use that to pay for that as well. We actually got, the first year that we did it, we actually got a sponsor for ours. Again, I just had the local pizza place sponsor our Honor Society members so that they didn't have to pay. And it wasn't like very many. I mean, it ends up being like 5 kids that apply. So it's like $25 or something. So it doesn't end up being very much money. But I don't know that the grant is funding that. I will definitely check on that. That's on my list of things to check on. That was asked by somebody else too. The budget for year 2 is still being kind of sussed out. Year 2 technically doesn't start until October 1st, just the way that fiscal year ends. So September 30th is the end, October 1st. So once we have the budget for starting on October 1st, we will know what every exact amounts for everything. But either way, I do have some ideas for you on how you can get that stuff covered to pay for that. These are the conferences. These are the dates. You want to save these dates. Of course, everybody, we all want to go to Portland this year. And then, of course, we're going to Towson for the state conference. Competition information. This is the link to the competition schedule, which you also had in the checklist. But again, super important to keep this handy. So many questions came through about the first competition. And I know it was the first competition, but this has so many details. This is the deadline for when you sign up and how you do the pre-scoring stuff. And then and then all of the Maryland rules, and then all the pre-scoring components that are required. So for example, for the TED Talk, what do you actually have to turn in for pre-scoring? It's listed here. For the bulletin board, what is pre-scored? What do they have to complete to turn it in? It's all right here for you with all the deadlines and dates. So you just want to make sure you have that kind of handy and bookmarked, because it's going to be really helpful for you when you're planning for these competitions. Here's this is a resources link. This first link will take you to our grant resources, website, I guess you would want to call it. It's like a Google site, but it takes you to all about competitions because that's the competitions. But you can see that this is the cheat sheet that has all of the pre-scored. It has the competition, what's needed for pre-scoring, what happens on site or in the actual competition. For every competition, there's the competition schedule, the sign-up form, the rubrics and the details, and then the October competition details. So when you click on this, you'll see all the information about October competitions, right? So this is our website, and I would like to encourage you to check that website. I'm kind of keeping it really up to date with some, information that I'm sending out so that you're not, hopefully you're not going to be bombarded by emails. We'll likely be able to use that. And then some more links for competition stuff. This is that link to our resource website top. This is the Maryland EdRISING website. So this is the general EdRISIng Maryland site, and it has, our national award winners, our competition sign up, the competition schedule, basically the same stuff that is on that, because it's stuff that I created. And then the national website portal. So when you click on this, it takes you right to the portal to EdRISIng. These are 2 links to sign up for Facebook groups. So, if you are on Facebook and you would like to be getting more information about, they're both national level groups. So like teacher leaders from all over the country are in this group. And I love it because they share fundraising ideas and different community service ideas that's happening in Indiana or Wisconsin or whatever, like things I would never have thought of. And then the other one is the curriculum one. So it's people that are using the curriculum across the country. And again, they share slide decks and ideas of what they did to talk about ethics or talk about this or what kind of you know, project-based learning that they did that month and stuff. So it's just the really great groups, you know, to kind of help you with ideas and stuff. And I don't know, this main teacher leader, when I found out that somebody earned like $25,000 selling popcorn or something, and I was like so jealous and amazed. But yeah, so there's just things like that, like ideas and different things to do. Um, Now it is time for questions. I'm going to stop sharing and just see if anybody has any questions. If, well, hold on, let me go back here. We are grant funded. Okay, Honor Society. All right, perfect. So questions. We're pretty much done, unless you guys have any questions for me. Anybody? Anybody out there? Hopefully you guys all heard me and got that.
Shannon, can you hear me? This is Alyssa.
Hi, Lisa. I can hear
I
you.
don't. Okay, good. My camera isn't. I don't even know how to. It's not plugged in.
It's okay.
I'm looking at the competition, like and if it says in person, it's only in person. Is that right? Because like the
Yeah.
creative lectures coming up, the interactive bulletin board, that's October, and I don't know how to process that. Like if it's in person.
So our October competitions are only going to be in person. So MSDE, we used to have everything virtual. You know, obviously they went virtual for COVID and then they stayed virtual because it is actually really convenient. But MSDE said to EdRising, they have to have some in-person competitions. So this year, for the first time, we're having some competitions at different places. This particular competition, in-person competition, is in Worcester County, which is like way Eastern Shore, like on the other side. I don't know where you are, particularly Alyssa, but like it's far from me. It's like way over. I'm in Frederick County, so it's like way over across the bridge.
Yeah, we're still pretty far in Hartford, so
Yeah. So it's pretty far. So it's not super convenient. However, we do have people that are over the other side of the bridge that are EdRising schools, and they have never been able to, you know, really been able to come to an event because of that. So we're trying to represent both sides, you know, all of Maryland, right? And it becomes a little difficult, but these particular competitions are going to be held in Worcester County. So if anybody can go, they are welcome to sign up and go compete in person. My thought is that they will probably be likely only competing against the people on that side of the bridge because it's going to be hard for students to get there. So that's October competitions. They're going to be in person. Virtual competitions are, you know, everyone from all over the state can do it because it's all Zoom, right? We have a few more that are going to be in person. There's going to be some in PG County in person. And if you ever want to host Hartford County, I'm wink, wink, Audrey, I'm telling you this. If you ever want to host your own in-person ones, we can also arrange for that so that it makes it really easy for your students because it can be right in one of the schools there in your county. So that in-person one is in Worcester County. If anybody, you know, has a grandma that lives over there, then maybe they can compete or whatever. They happen to be going there anyway, they could compete, or anybody from that side of the bridge can compete.
Okay.
It's open to everybody, but I think it might be a little difficult for some students to compete. That one.
Okay, it's fine. It's just when looking at the form at those, I don't think I processed that it was like that far away, or I don't know. There's just so much on one screen, and
I
that's
actually had to look
clear.
at a map. I have to look at the map of Maryland to find
Yeah, I
where
know.
it was. I've heard of it, obviously, but I was like, exactly which one is it over there? You know, which county is it? So I had to look at a map to see it myself. But yeah, so it is in person. So that's going to limit, you know, for this particular, I mean, there's one competition and one contest being held there.
And are they always on Saturdays? Is that what I'm seeing?
No. So the EdRising moment happened on a Monday and a
Well,
Tuesday.
I guess I should clarify, the in-person, are they always on Saturdays?
In-persons are probably most likely going to be on the weekends, yes.
Yeah.
Because they're using school buildings and in most cases, right? And they're, you know, it's going to be hard for us to find rooms during the day in a school building.
Okay. I think that's all I have for now.
Audrey, we're not there yet. Yeah, so next year we'll get you, Audrey. We'll have some in-persons next year. As gung-ho as Hartford County has been, I wouldn't put it past you guys. Any other questions? I appreciate you guys showing up today and doing this and getting the little check mark in your box for this. I'm here for you, so definitely let me know if you have any questions, along the way. I assure you that you will, and I'm here to answer that and to help you. As soon as we all hang up here, I'm going to send you an email with this link, so don't worry about the chat closing and you losing the link or any of that, or you having to close your computer. You'll have it in your email so that you can go and click on all of these links, okay? But you guys have a wonderful evening. It was great to chat at you, I guess, in this particular case. And I will talk to you guys soon, okay? Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.